guess my favorite childhood snack was a dried instant noodle where you can add your own sort of flavor pack to it, and you would eat the noodles dry without adding anything.
How does it apply to me? Well, technically I'm Japanese, so technically if, you know, my parents weren't to work anywhere else, I would have grown up in Japan. But I didn't. Like, I grew up in Hong Kong and neither of my parents are Chinese, and I grew up in Canada and neither of my parents are Canadian. So it's kind of, I'm just being, and I wouldn't say defined, I would say influenced by all these different places. So like if you looked at me, it wouldn't just be like a Canadian flag, or it wouldn't just be like a Japanese flag. Honestly, it would be like a mesh of all of them.
I was actually born in Vancouver, and then when I was 3 years old to 6 years old, I went with my parents to Hong Kong and lived there for 3 years. And curry fish balls, I loved the curry fish balls that they sold in carts, like the vendors, buskers would sell in carts. The curry fish balls were amazing, can't find that here. So I guess it is a thing of the past. Not that sad, I mean things taste better when you're a kid, right?
I think it's the age thing. Like when I was born in Taiwan, obviously when you're a little kid you don't really remember much, but you still have that sense of belonging there. But a majority of my sort of teenage life, adult life, or not, I guess early adult life is spent in Canada. So I would identify myself as more Canadian than Taiwanese. Food is a huge part in connecting people. You know, people always talk about like their favorite food, what they like to eat and stuff like that. And I don't think there's definitely a difference between these two countries.
Japanese culture, I can only comment on what I've seen in my family. I've never actually lived there, so I can't really comment on, you know, the general population or anything. My parents practice the culture. Well, not practice it, but it's definitely in our family, in the way we do things. I don't think there's something called Canadian culture besides just being very liberal about everything. You know, like food culture-wise, like what the hell is Canadian food, you know?
I think living in that previous experience of living in Asia definitely has an impact on the way I see things, like sort of my my perspective on things. And I guess growing up in Taiwan, people there tend to be a little bit more conservative. So part of me, when I make decisions, there's always that conservative side of me that comes out. I wouldn't say lost, but I definitely sometimes feel like there's a gap between the culture. For example, when I go back to Taiwan, I'm definitely not as accustomed to like the local news and stuff like that. So that sort of is a gap that always that always comes out.
Oh no, my parents didn't come because I was a mediocre student. That might have been the reason. They just didn't tell me, but that wasn't it. The Chinese language shapes a lot of my thoughts, like how I think and how I understand things. So it's kind of like my worldview, and also food, right? Chinese food is kind of like my staples, and Canadian values, like especially the values of like kind of being inclusive, being accepting, embracing diversity. That forms another very important part of my identity and how I see the world and my values and how I think the world should be. Like Canadian culture is very like everybody is beautiful in their own ways, and we should encourage that beauty rather than try to fit people into blocks. And I identify with that a lot.